Welcome on into the Fantasy Football Forge. We're going to try this for a second time. Had some major sound issues going on with my wide receivers and rankings videos when I recorded them earlier today. So hopefully this works out better. I need to readjust this for the screen. Sorry, it might encroach a little bit there on the updated weekly rankings up at the top. Hey, speaking about that, guys, you can find the weekly rankings as they get updated through the week. The same spreadsheet that we're looking at now, but every time it gets updated, it automatically gets updated on the website as well, www.theFFForge.com. There's also links to all of the positional rankings in the description of this video, down in the description. And you can also find my most up-to-date and recent rankings here live on YouTube when I go live for your start-sit questions every Thursday, 1 hour 45 minutes prior to kickoff. Wow, cool myself down here. And 3 hours prior to kickoff on Sunday mornings. So, we got injury news to go over for the running backs. We've got interesting usage information coming from the J.J. Zachariason information dump that he puts out there onto social media every Monday morning. So check that stuff out. It's good. I comb through it, what's most relevant for us in fantasy football going forward, and might give a little bit of context to some of that as well. On the screen, over here in the leftmost column, when we get to the rankings, you're looking at the fantasy points on a scale of 0 to 36. It's average fantasy points per week with a twist of consistency. And then here are the opportunities to get 2 points for every target and 1 point for every rushing attempt. That's how you get opportunities. I am dying by this point, guys and ladies. So over here we've got the Vegas line, spread, implied point total. Give us a good idea. Is this a week where we're expecting them to have a lead and run the ball a lot? Is this a week where we're expecting them to have a lot of touchdown opportunities just to help guide the rankings? But none of these things are, the only data points that matter. So just keep that in mind. Nonetheless, with all that out of the way, let's get on to the injuries and the interesting usage information. Don't forget to like the video. It really, really helps. For the injuries, Quinshon Judkins is coming back from an injury from 2 weeks ago where it was a shoulder injury, and he's been listed as day-to-day. I'm expecting him to play this week. I am ranking him. Saquon Barkley, I'm also ranking him. He had a groin injury. Haven't really heard anything about that. Hopefully that's good news that we haven't heard anything about that. Samaje Perine had an ankle injury. Cincinnati's off this week anyways, but if that's severe, that's definitely going to help Chase Brown to get more usage. Again, we'll get over that actually in the usage information that we look at. And Aaron Jones had an AC joint sprain. It is possible that he will return here for Week 10 and not miss any time. So I am ranking him as of now. Moving on to the interesting usage. In part, if not fully, due to the Samaje Perine injury, Chase Brown saw a lot of targets and he dominated the snaps. He had 96% of the snaps last week. Jordan Mason is averaging 5.2 points per game in full PPR with Aaron Jones active in those games. That's not good. Rico Dowdle did not only outsnap Chuba, which we knew was going to happen, but he absolutely dominated the usage and the snaps. So that is huge. Just huge. I expected it to be a little bit more of a share than that. But, I can't imagine they're going to go back from that with the results up against the Green Bay Packers defense. One of, if not the, I would say one of three clear-cut best run defenses in the league. Green Bay has been using their backup running backs more in the passing game, taking that work away from Josh Jacobs. I don't know if that's anything strategic, or is that possibly because Josh Jacobs has been quite banged up over the last several weeks. So maybe that usage could return. Tough to say because it has been kind of effective actually when they've been thrown to some of those backup running backs. Kimani Vidal hit a season low in usage since becoming the starter. So that wasn't good. I assume that had something to do with how that game flow went. Tennessee had a lead on that. I mean, it was not what we expected. We expected last night of the Chargers to absolutely dominate against them, and Kimani Vidal to have a big day with a lot of usage, and it kind of was the exact opposite, and then, Chargers had to come back. Travion Henderson dominated the snap share, and he ran a route on 73% of dropbacks. So that was very nice to see from Ramondre Stevenson continues to be out, which is currently how I have it ranked. That Travion Henderson got a good amount of the usage and the opportunities more so. New York Giants backfield worked out like not like expected. Singletary outsnapped Tracy by 7 snaps, and Tyrone Tracy did run 4 more routes than Singletary, however, so it looks like we've got a 1A, 1B situation, depending on the game flow, depending on are they favorited in the game, are they supposed to be working from a lead? I think that works to the benefit of Singletary, and are they supposed to be playing from behind? I think that would work to the benefit of Tyrone Tracy. Nonetheless, still a 1A, 1B split too. So, not the greatest of situations, and really crappy for those who invested in Tyrone Tracy last week on the waiver wire. Jaylen Warren has been below a 10% target share 3 of the last 4 weeks. RJ Harvey did finally see an increase in usage. By the way, for Jaylen Warren, that sucks because that's what was really putting him over the top. So hopefully that will return for him. RJ Harvey did finally see an increase in usage last week. I mentioned the fact that, and it still has been, his production been heavily reliant on touchdowns. However, this week, finally, we did see an increase in usage, which we had not previously. He just was happening to break a few plays and get some touchdowns. In week 9, he had a 14.7% target share. Previously, 4.2% and 3.7% in those other 2 games where he had good weeks because of those touchdowns. It has been bad for Alvin Kamara. I don't think I need to go into any kind of detail for that. You guys who have Alvin Kamara absolutely know that. Crappy. I don't know that's going to get any better. Brashard Smith did. I'm sure it gets somewhat better. Hopefully. Brashard Smith did not get much more work with no Pacheco. So I thought he would. He did not. And for the first time since week 4, Ken Walker outsnapped Zach Charbonnet. I do think that this might have been matchup related, but also maybe not, or maybe both things. Maybe he'll just start to continue to get outsnapping Zach Charbonnet. But there was some reason to like matchup-wise Ken Walker in that matchup last week. Has a lot of speed going up against a defense that's kind of old and slow. So, that might have been game plan related, but who knows. I think we actually still have some luds and fades before I get into that. Last week, I loved Bam Knight, but I loved him less and less as the week went on, and I do believe that I removed my love tag from him before the end of the week. And then Blake Corum, the reason that I loved him, thought he would get a lot of opportunities because I thought that they would crush in that game. They did crush. He did get quite a few opportunities, 13 opportunities, for where we're ranking Blake Corum. That's a good amount of opportunities. And it just didn't get the touchdown, though, or a big play or something on top of that, unfortunately. And then Jeremy McNichols, I was surprised. It didn't get used very much. And for my fades, I faded Rico Dowdle, which, obviously, I made the video well before any, I believe I removed my fade from Rico Dowdle, so I guess we can give myself some credit for that. But yeah, faded him and Chuba Hubbard. I still was fading Rico Dowdle, though. I mean, I still had him, relatively where the experts had him too, but wasn't expecting that week against the Green Bay Packers defense. Jeez. And then Alvin Kamara faded him, and that's starting to look like we don't need to fade him anymore. We can just rank him low because it's been ugly. That's going to bring us on to this first tier of running backs. We got Jonathan Taylor as my running back 1, followed by Devon Achane, which it's a funky, still should be good matchup, but Buffalo allows the most yards per carry to running backs, but they don't allow a lot of receiving work to running backs so far in the season. And of course, Devon Achane's an excellent receiving running back and gets a lot of work there. I expect he still probably will get a good chunk of work there, but maybe he'll be less efficient there, maybe a few lower than average. However, the fact that they allow the most yards per carry, you give a lane to Devon Achane and he can break the big play. So look forward to a better week than last week for Devon Achane. Christian, at least in half PPR and standard leagues. Christian McCaffrey, my running back 3 this week. Josh Jacobs, Jahmyr Gibbs, Bijan Robinson, James Cook in a really, really good matchup against Miami, and Rico Dowdle. Good matchup there against New Orleans. For my next tier, it kicks off with my running back 9 at Derrick Henry going up against Minnesota. They allow teams run against Minnesota a lot. I probably could have kept him in this tier. Kyron Williams right behind that going up against San Francisco. Los Angeles Rams should be able to score and give him some scoring opportunities. Kyle Mananga going up against the New York Giants. New York Giants allow 4th most. They allow a lot of yards per carry, so it's a really good matchup for Kyle Mananga. Of course, this love and the ranking would change if DeAndre Swift ends up coming back this week, but if not, I do love Kyle Mananga. Quinshon Judkins also New York Jets just got rid of their run-stuffing defensive tackle, so I moved him up ahead of Saquon Barkley. He had been behind him with that trade going on. Really, really good setup for Quinshon Judkins to come back into our lineups. Saquon Barkley going up against Green Bay, it's a really, really tough running back matchup, but it's Saquon Barkley. Rachaad White, if there is no Bucky Irving, this is where I have him ranked here, going up against New England. Kimani Vidal going up against Pittsburgh, good matchup. Travion Henderson against Tampa Bay, fine matchup. J.K. Dobbins going up against Las Vegas, fine enough matchup, and really, really good, game flow here, expected to have the lead. So should get a lot of opportunities on the ground, should be able to work from a lead against Las Vegas. Maybe, I don't know, maybe the spread's a little bit too big with Brock Bowers returning there, but the implied point total is good there too. So, big fan of J.K. Dobbins this week. He gets my second love tag, in part because I'm just ranking him, I think, lower than a lot of experts as well. I had a little bit of trouble finding my loves and my fades for running backs this week. It turns into a complete mess, and then above that, I'm not going to sit here and fade somebody that you're just starting or love somebody that you're just automatically starting. So that limits who I can love and fade, and some tough decisions this week, but that will bring us on to this next tier, starting off with Breece Hall going against Cleveland. Not a good running back matchup. In fact, they allow, I think it is through the first 8 weeks, the least receptions to running backs as well. So just really not a good stylistic matchup for Breece Hall either. But nonetheless, I'm sure he's still going to get enough a good amount of targets here against Cleveland, and so that's why we still have him ranked 18th overall. But it is a week where I have some concerns for Breece Hall. Jaylen Warren, Travis Etienne, Ashton Jeanty, Ken Walker, David Montgomery, Aaron Jones, Devin Singletary ahead of Tyrone Tracy here, Alvin Kamara right behind him, Zach Charbonnet, Tyrone Tracy, Woody Marks, and Amari DeMarcado to finish up that tier at running back 30. Ashton Jeanty is my other fade of the week here, going up against Denver. So it's really not a good matchup, and the receiving upside's not really there. Is a concern too with Baltimore, but I think Denver allows they're bottom 5 in terms of average yards per carry, and that's with this Las Vegas offensive line and everything spells some trouble for Ashton Jeanty, and then compound on top of that the fact that some of that receiving work that he had been finally getting might be going back towards Brock Bowers again. Yeah, the floor might be pretty ugly this week for Ashton Jeanty. Hopefully the fade is wrong. I don't get them all right every week. Other than that, I think Devin Singletary is the one that matches up a little bit better here against Chicago. Chicago does allow a good amount of yards per carry on the higher end there. So I would think Devin Singletary would be the one who has a better chance of taking advantage of that. And Woody Marks going up against Jacksonville. That's actually Woody Marks and Amari DeMarcado, and maybe Tyrone Tracy to an extent. One moment before I finish that. No, so for Tyrone Tracy, this is the average targets, 2 running backs against the Chicago Bears. Not good. So actually, might even move him a spot lower there. But you see Seattle, look at the difference here between them and the second most targets average against them, 8.6 compared to 6.8. By the way, this is taken off of FTN's website. These are the fantasy points against DVP tool. And then the other one was Jacksonville, and I believe Jacksonville, so yardage total also for receiving yards, really, really high for Seattle, but you can see Jacksonville on the higher end here too for receiving backs, so that should help Woody Marks there. So, I might move Tyrone Tracy actually back behind these two. So we'll give Woody Marks and Amari DeMarcado the nod there. I might flip these two again. Nah, I think I'm going to leave it like that. I don't know. Let me know what you think. As always, dude. Leave me a comment. Let me know what rankings you disagree with, and provide some evidence for it too. And sometimes you can impact the rankings for sure. I definitely take your thoughts into consideration of any kind of ranking changes that I do throughout the week. It helps the algorithm, which is really helpful, as well as liking the video is really helpful. So please don't forget to do those things. But here is the last tier of guys who, take a shot on him. RJ Harvey here at my running back 31. Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, Nick Chubb. Both of them not good matchups for the running backs here against Detroit or Jacksonville. Jordan Mason, Terrell Jennings, or Terrell Jennings, I'm not 100% sure. Bam Knight, Blake Corum, Chuba Hubbard, Tyler Algier, Jeremy McNichols, Isaiah Davis, and Kenneth Walker to finish that up. And then there's this tier, you can see those guys if you want. We are not currently ranking Trey Benson, DeAndre Swift, Amarian Hampton, Hassan Haskins, Ramondre Stevenson, Caleb Johnson, Bucky Irving, as I recall it. Technically, any of these guys could be playing this week. Well, Caleb Johnson is probably playing this week, or maybe he'll be a healthy scratch. Either way, not too concerned about ranking him. But yeah, otherwise, they could technically return, but Bucky Irving is the one where it is actually looking kind of likely to return. So I will, by the time that this video is out, I may have ranked him based on his practice. If he's a partial practice participant on Wednesday, then probably ranking him as long as there's no bad news that comes out of that practice. I think that is it for the running back rankings. Thank you so very, very much. Nice quick video for you. Saved you 4 minutes of time here by re-recording it. Yeah, I just, not too much to really add, and it gets pretty ugly quickly here, so I think a lot of this is just going to come down to your start-sit questions, and I'll try to explain away some of why I think you should start one guy over another. But there you go. Thank you so very much for tuning on in. Have a great rest of your evening or day. And Quarterbacks and Tight Ends video comes out tomorrow morning, Thursday morning, as always. Bye-bye.